I will show you later an unlined Gothic chasuble that's almost 100 years old. And it's a beautiful chasuble. When you see how it's done, you say, oh, this was so easy. Why don't we do more of these? And they should be done this way. And that's what I say. Taking old vestments apart, you learn things about vestment making that they knew that we don't. And dressmaker, you don't make a vestment the same way you would make a dress. And one of the big problems with a Gothic chasuble is the lining. Because there's so much of it, it tends to pull down. And people who line a Gothic chasuble will say, well, when I make it, I hang it for a couple days to let the lining fall. That's a common problem with a Gothic chasuble. And the major problem they're having is they're using the wrong type of fabric for the lining. If they were using the right type of fabric, it wouldn't do that. Somehow people have it in their minds that a chasuble has to be lined with satin. And it doesn't. Yeah, it looks pretty, but it doesn't have to be satin. The problem with satin is that it stretches. And when you line a chasuble with satin, all that weight will pull it down, and that's why you get this pool at the bottom where it's hanging below the bottom of the chasuble. There's a pool of fabric, and sometimes you pull it up in the neck, and the next day you come down, there's another. You keep pulling up till you've got this much fabric at the top of that wasn't there, and you measured this correctly. How come I've got 8 inches of fabric left? It's because of the weight, and Gothics also tend to be on a bias. A lot of it is on the bias, which tends to stretch it even more. You don't have the same problem when you're doing a fiddleback or Latin chasuble. So you can use satin on a fiddleback if you want to, but you don't need to. You don't need to use satin for any chasuble. In fact, one of the best lining fabrics that I found, and if you look at some of the old vestments, you'll find that's a lot what they used, is cotton broadcloth. Cotton broadcloth is a nice fabric, very light. It's a natural fabric, so it breathes. And it comes in the quilting section in every conceivable color and pattern. I have a cope in there that has a cotton broadcloth lining. Take a look at it. And I used it's a patterned fabric for the lining. It's a kind of off-white with some kind of swirl in it, and it's very nice. For a lot of chasuble, and the reason I started using cotton broadcloth was I had to make a set of solemn high vestments for a monastery whose abbot was going to celebrate his 50th anniversary in the order. And his monks hand-painted all the orphreys and all the designs that were going on the bottom of the chasuble, the stoles, the maniple, the beautiful cross for the back of a full figure of our Lord standing with the Eucharist in his hand, and it was beautiful, all these hand-painted pieces. And they sent with it, they wanted me to make it, but they sent with all these hand-painted pieces the fabric to be used for the lining. They didn't send the main fabric. They wanted to use my golden white fabric. But they sent the lining and the trim. And the lining they wanted was this. This is what they sent. A cotton broadcloth. And I thought, you spent all that time to hand paint all that and do all that work, and you want a cotton broadcloth lining. I thought, well, the customer's always right, so I did it, and it turned out beautifully. And after that, I began to pay more attention to some of the linings that I saw on old, and yeah, a lot of them are cotton. They don't. In fact, they use some other fabrics too, but almost never use satin. Another favorite. So this is one of my favorite linings now, is cotton broadcloth. Another favorite lining is taffeta. And again, taffeta has the shininess of kind of a satin, but there's a stiffness to it, a crispness to it. It does not let it move like satin does. Here's satin. There you go. Satin moves. You know, it's just moves all different directions, and but taffeta doesn't. And you can get this is regular dress taffeta, which is a little bit thicker than taffeta lining. These are taffeta lining. These are and if you feel them, you'll feel there's a difference.
Oh, there is a significant weight
A
difference.
very significant weight difference. The taffeta lining is very light, but it's also, you can't see through it. It's not, and it still has that same build to it it's not going to stretch. So, and as far as price is concerned, usually they're both around the same price. It might be a couple dollars difference depending upon where you buy it, but sometimes you can't get the taffeta in the color that you want. So, but the taffeta linings come in all colors usually, so except they were out of gold. So I did get gold satin because we can use it for a Latin chasuble. We can use a gold satin, and I wanted gold for one of the vestments. We weren't sure what color was going to be except white, which I think is yours. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, gold will work. So I bought a couple of taffeta, and you can buy these at Joann's, though I also buy them online. There's a place I buy a lot of my taffeta online.
Where do you get
Sy Fabrics, SYFABRICS, I think it's with an S on it, .com. And they have a section on taffeta. And you can, they have both dress taffeta, or sometimes they call it bridal taffeta, and they also have the lining taffeta, so you can get either there. Joann's does also carry it. They're all on sale. These, I think they go on sale at Joann's regularly, the linings, so you can, I usually only use, almost as far as linings are concerned, I almost always use just burgundy, a gold, and some kind of blue, either the navy blue or the royal blue. If it's a green vestment, I can use a gold. If it's a purple vestment, I'll use gold. Red vestments, I usually either use gold or burgundy. Marion vestments, I almost always use a blue. I have used a turquoise blue only when I did Our Lady of Guadalupe vestment. She tends to be turquoise. The color scheme in that is turquoise, so I've used it. I had some turquoise and I used it for that. All right, so that's the problem with linings, and what kind of fabric you need for lining. Stick with a fabric, and if you have if you do that when you're lining a Gothic vestment, you use a taffeta or a cotton, you will not have to have it hang. You won't get that pooling at the bottom. But you can use satin for Latin chasubles because they don't have that weight that, on this, there's not a whole lot of it pulling to the bottom, and it's also on the grain, so you don't have the bias effect that you have with a Gothic chasuble. So yeah, I do sometimes use the satin for that, especially if it's like a purple vestment, a nice gold satin shows up very well. But taffeta has the same effect as satin. Sometimes they even call it a satin taffeta, but it's not. It's but it has that same shininess, but it has more of a crispness to it that lets you work with it. And then it's a whole lot easier to work with too, especially the dress taffeta that's stiffer than either of these or these. All right, so as far as you're concerned, we're going to, you're making the Marian, and you're making our Lords, so you get the gold.
I get the satin.
You get the satin.
I don't want to tell you, that's the same satin I bought, and I had bought your pattern a couple of years ago. Mail ordered it from, this is what I tried to use, and
Was it the Gothic or the?
that was the Gothic one, and
Yeah.
it was not good.
No,
So
it wasn't.
I'm going to
That's not
learn.
good.
I'm
That's
happy
not-
to learn on, I'll
Uh-huh.
use that, but I'm happy to do this.
Yeah,
so.
this will look nice with your Latin. You won't have a problem with it. If it would have had a problem, I certainly would have
No,
used it.
I
so.
realize that, but you didn't see the one I made. It was really bad.
Yeah,
So-
I've done that. Been there, done that. So.
Father
All
says,
right.
oh, thank you.